Okay, so this is my report of the SRAC meeting. As soon as I get my phone back on. And I apologize if I start coughing. I'm having an asthma attack. So, I mean, it's been going on for a few days. So, anyway, it may sound like I'm dying, but just to let you know while I can talk, it's not. I'm not dying. Yeah. Feels like it sometimes, but I know I'm not. Let's see. So, we had a meeting, which was a real interesting meeting. And let me get it up to the interesting part. One of the favorite items on our, let's see, I'm not in the right place here, on our agenda is always our update from the Paratransit brokers general manager. The Paratransit broker right now is Rashida Kamara, and she talked about the move, and one of the interesting things about the move is that they're not moving very far, maybe a couple doors, right, Mallory?
Yes.
However, it'll be a very big change for the comfort, I would say, of the paratransit riders, because right now they're pulling up, when people come in a paratransit vehicle, say for certification or whatever other business they have in the paratransit broker's office, they actually park and unload and load the vehicle on Broadway, which is a really busy street. And it's really difficult to do that, I would say, and there isn't always a good place. When at the new site, there's actually a place where they can pull in on the other side of the building and into a parking lot. So it'll be a much more, I don't know what the word is, secure, safe. By safe, I mean from injury. Than it is in the front of the building. So that's one big asset. The other is that it's the space that the agency wants, and they can get a lease there, right? That's getting it all worked out has been an issue, but now it's been approved by the city of Oakland, which was the big stumbling step, as I understand. And then the bonus to paratransit users and other disabled people is that they have this wonderful meeting room that's big enough to fit a bunch of wheelchairs in. So it'll be open to use by other agencies in the area. So that'll be really nice, and it's for those who are interested, right by a BART station elevator at 19th Street. So there are a lot of advantages to this new site, and hopefully it will house the agency for a long time. 10 years. 10 years. And maybe even be renewed, or unless that doesn't work anymore. But anyway, so that's really exciting, I think, as a person who has seen what's been happening to that agency since day one, because I'm an old-timer. Okay, so she talked about that, and then she talked about on-time performance. This is practically the same as previously at 90%. And there's been a struggle with it, and there have been difficult problems, including union negotiations and hiring new drivers. However, a contract was signed at the beginning of the year, and so we look forward to improvements with this provider. And while there was a driver shortage, that resulted in complaints from riders, and it was pretty significant, from 1,278 complaints to 1,678 complaints. And the other thing that's been happening is the emergency planning measure that you may remember coming up before. They've been developing an emergency procedure for the big emergency, like the big earthquake or the big whatever. And so they hired a consultant to come up with that plan, and some of us attended a meeting, and I did also. And so it was really interesting, and they did a really thorough plan, I think, don't you, Mallory? And so I don't know if you wanted to add anything on that item before I go on to the rest of the report, but.
Well, we were able, with the help of the company, it's called Nusura, and we trained well over 300 drivers, all of our dispatchers, all of our office staff, and the folks that are responsible for activating our emergency operations center over the summer. So it was a pretty Herculean task, but it was great because we did spend, discussing the plan, had the drivers, their feedback, the dispatchers' feedback, and then we did focus attention on personal preparedness at home, because if they're not comfortable that their family is safe, their home is safe, and make appropriate arrangements, then they're not going to do us any good in the event of emergency in order to get in and provide service that we need to provide. So it's an ongoing process, but we finally got over the hurdle of at least the plan. So it was a good effort.
Mm-hmm. So moving on to the next part of that report, there was a discussion of the implementation of the interactive voice response system, also known as the IVR. And they're starting on the internal testing of that, and that is where the system will call up the riders the night before their ride and to remind them of of what their ride is. And it won't give the window, but it'll give the start time. And then on the day of service, when the driver is half a mile from the location of the rider, it will do another call where it says basically, hey, we're here, we're half a mile away from where you are, so you need to be out. However, it's not quite as good as it sounds, because it's still the responsibility of the rider to be there at the beginning or within 5 minutes of the beginning of the half-hour window. So if it says I'm going to be there at 10:15 and your window said 10 to 10:30, if it came at 10:05 and you weren't out there, you would get a no-show. So it's not quite as good as you don't have to start getting out there until it says, because things happen with traffic and so forth. So, but it's still helpful. So if you, let's see. Then I think that was pretty much what happened. Unless you wanted to add anything, Mallory. No. I have switched to doing this online. So okay, I think we have a quorum, don't we? We do. Yay! Thank you all for coming.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was thinking you already signed it. Maybe you
Oh, no, I didn't. So why don't we start out with, I believe, the Pledge of Allegiance, and the flag is over in the corner as I look at it. Okay. Mallory, would you like to lead us?
Sure. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so now let's move on to introductions, starting with the members of the committee. Laramie, do you want to start?
Yes. Laramie Bowern with the County Connection.
Antoinette Redrick, I'm with Rehabilitation Services of Northern California.
Michael Dowgelli, I'm Vice Chair and a consumer from East County.
Tom Horace with Tri-Delta Transit.
Janet Abelson, I'm consumer from West County and current chair.
Mallory Brush, AC Transit.
Lori Reese Brown, City of Richmond.
Janet Bilbis, City of El Cerrito.
Rita Xavier, County Advisory Council on Aging.
Becky Wojtowski, City of San Pablo.
And now let's go to the staff.
Peter Engel, CCTA staff.
Denise Rosenbaum, CCTA staff, filling in for Irene Ortega.
And let's go now to the audience.
Hi, I'm Sharon Keiki, and I'm with the Paratransit on Tri-Delta in Antioch. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, I'm sorry. I would like to be on this committee. That's why I showed up, because it was very thoughtful of what goes on here.
So, for East County here, looks like there is an East County slot. I'm not sure. There have to be either one or two people who are seniors and either one or two people who are have a disability, who are a user, and I don't quite know.
And
And
Madam
they
Chair,
have to be
we
appointed,
actually have
right?
2 open slots because Dee Daly hasn't been here for the better part of a couple months.
So then it doesn't matter, right?
That's correct.
Forget all that I said. It doesn't matter. So could you explain the process, please?
Yeah, so she's here to observe what the bylaws or our application process requires that they come to a meeting and observe, and then we'll give her an application and she can fill that out, and we'll consider that at a future meeting.
Great, and we would love to have you.
I would love to be here.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, and I'm not sure there we go. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. And with that, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is public comment on items not on the agenda. It's an opportunity for members of the public to speak on items that you don't see here. If you see something here, you can speak at the time we're discussing it. Is there anybody who wants to speak on an item not on the agenda? Usually we have 3 minutes per item. I don't see anybody, so we'll move on.
Madam Chair, I actually make a comment real quick, just on a couple items that, well, on something that'll be on a future agenda. Josh Sullivan with Futures Explored and with the Developmental Disability Council. The Developmental Disability Council has appointed him to fill their position on the PCC. We got a letter from them, but it was after we had sent out the agenda, so officially we need to take action on that. So we'll put that on our next agenda.
I'm sorry, which organization?
Developmental Disabilities Council, when Penny Musante's
Oh,
previous
Penny
position.
Musante.
Yeah.
Right there. Okay.
So Josh will be representing, and hopefully we didn't mess up his agenda today with the change in meeting date from the 3rd to the 4th Monday in this one
Does
case
he
this
need
month.
to go through
I was
the
hoping he'd be here, but
procedure of
applying No, not in the case of the
Okay.
agencies. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention. He might show up today, and if he does, then he's officially not on the PCC till we take action.
Okay.
But
I'm not suggesting that he shouldn't be, but these agencies don't actually have slots, right?
yeah, the agencies have slots.
The social service agencies? So it's only these agencies that can be on?
Well, if we have an agency that doesn't want to have a representative here, then we would fill it with a new agency. So we do have a couple of those as well. So we need to find a couple new agencies. Developmental Disabilities Council wanted to have a representative remain on after Penny retired, and so they appointed Josh to that.
Okay, but they don't really, I thought agencies didn't really have slots. I'm not suggesting that we don't appoint him, by the way. I'm just saying that I didn't think that he could get appointed, he could just get appointed,
Right.
period. But because there might be some other agency, obviously in this case there isn't, but at least there aren't enough. It's so that way other agencies could feel like they could also be part of this group.
Right.
Theoretically. Okay, thanks. And so we now move on to the minutes of November the 17th. And we didn't actually have a quorum, right?
We did not have a quorum in November.
So these are just
They're just basically notes.
for our information? Okay. Does anybody?
But September 15th, we did have a quorum, and those minutes are
Okay.
officially to be approved.
Do I have that order right of which one didn't?
That's correct. 17th, we didn't have a quorum. November 17th, we did not have a quorum. September 15th, we did.
We did, okay. So I'm moving on now to September 15th minutes, which are in your packet starting on page 9. Does anybody see any problem with that, or does somebody want to make a motion to approve?
I motion to approve.
Okay, there's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Michael, seconded by Steve.
Tom.
Any comments? Comments from the audience? Is that what you were going to mention? Is that what you were going to mention, Peter? Asking for comments?
No.
Oh, no, okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition or abstention? Motion carries.
I abstain.
Okay,
Abstain.
okay, 2 abstentions, and they are
And a third abstention.
Mallory, Lori, Janet, Bilbus, and you weren't yet on. Yeah, so does she actually have to abstain? No. Yeah.
Technically, from what our attorney tells us, is nobody has to abstain. Even if they weren't at the meeting, they could still vote on the minutes.
Okay. Okay. Do you folks who abstained want to do it still?
I take my abstention back.
Okey doke.
Me
That
too,
was
I
Lori.
was here.
So the other two, so that would be Mallory and Janet are abstaining. Okay. With all that, we'd already voted. Okay. Okay, next is the approval of the 2015 PCC meeting calendar. Where is that? Here it is, page 15. Does that work for everybody?
So I recommend that we adopt the meeting calendar for 2015.
Second? Second. Okay, motion by Lori, seconded by Janet B. All in favor, please say aye. Excuse me, I was going to say, are there any comments? Okay, seeing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Now, our next item on the agenda is the Section 5310 program update. I take it that, yes? Denise?
Thank you. I just wanted to note for the record that Josh Sullivan has arrived.
Thank you. And you're from where?
Yeah, so Josh, before you got here, I was explaining, we took a look through the bylaws and we officially have to take action on you joining, which by the time I got your letter, we had already sent out the agenda, so we'll do that at our next meeting. But you're certainly welcome to sit there, and you just can't vote.
Okay. Welcome. Okay. Why don't for fun, let's just go around and introduce ourselves to be polite. Okay. We'll start out again with you.
Sure.
Laramie?
Laramie Bowron. I'm with the County Connection. Okay.
Michael Dowgelli, I'm an East County consumer and vice chair.
Tom Horace with Tri Delta Transit.
Janet Abelson, Chair. I'm from West County.
Mallory Brush, AC Transit.
Lori Reese Brown, City of Richmond.
Janet Bilbis, City of El Cerrito.
Rita Xavier, County Advisory Council on Aging.
Vicky Wojciechowski, City of San Pablo.
Peter?
I'm sorry, Peter Engel, CCTA.
And Denise Rosenbaum, CCTA staff.
And moving to the audience.
And I'm Sharon Keiki from Paratransit at Tri-Delta in Antioch.
Okay, did we miss anybody? Well, thank you, Joshua, for wanting to join us. And, yes?
Apologies for being late. I fell for the treat traffic nightmare getting off the freeway.
Oh. Okay. Just as an aside, I do note that in looking at our members, that means that there are will be at least two representatives from East County. There are actually 3 representatives from West County because it doesn't, oh no, Rita's down at the bottom, okay. So there's 2 from West County and there's none from Central County in the paratransit users area, and I'm hoping that's a challenge to you, Laramie, to make a difference. Is that possible?
Yeah, I can talk to our
Okay, and you can get the criteria from Peter? Okay, super. It's a challenge. Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, on that note, I know we're off the agenda here, but one of the other, I'm sorry, I have a cold. I got it yesterday, so I'm on medication, so I'm not thinking very well today. But
neither am I.
Actually, on Friday, we received a resignation from Colleen Adams.
Oh.
So you actually have 2 vacancies in West County.
Oh, so I'm it?
So there's a challenge to West County operators now as well.
Who is that a challenge to? Let's see. That would be any of the 3 so that would be Lori, and it would be Janet, and the other one would be Vicky. But also Westcat. Is Westcat represented? They're not here. Well, it's hard to issue a challenge to somebody who's not here. Okay. But since I'm from El Cerrito, probably it would be a good idea that it be from somewhere else. And I don't take that personally. You know? But it's just a good idea since we have so many operators to spread it around. And you can get the criteria from Peter, because there are some criteria. Okay, ready to move on now? So that, I think we're at the section 5310 program update, and we're very happy to have Joshua with us. Okay, Peter?
Okay, so on page 17 is the item, was where agenda item 7 starts. This is an update to the 5310 program. At our November meeting, applications had been submitted at the time that we had the PCC meeting, but they were still being scored at that time, I believe. This item presents MTC's selected program of projects. It went to their allocations committee, programming allocations committee, and was approved and sent forward to their board last week. And I apologize, I didn't get a chance to go on, but I'm assuming they approved this program of projects, which begins on page 21. So there were 3 applications from Contra Costa County, and they were all funded at some level. I believe none of them were funded at what they completely asked for. So we have folks in the room that submitted applications, so if people want more information, I'm sure they'd be happy to provide information.
Okay. Does everybody, can everyone find that information in their packet, or would you like Peter to point out who it is?
So I'll just point out there was an application in West County from Contra Costa ARC, and then there was a joint application from the City of Richmond, City of El Cerrito, and San Pablo, and then there was a joint application in Central and East County that was headed up by Elaine Welch with Senior Mobility Council, and that not Senior Mobility Councils, sorry, Senior Helpline Services, I'm sorry. And that included Futures Explored, City of Lafayette, Rehabilitation Services in Northern California. Is that it? ARC and the Golden Rain Foundation.
And wasn't Futures, what is it called? Futures Forever?
Futures Explored?
Futures Explored, yeah. I thought I saw their name, or was that?
Yeah, they're part of the joint application. It was called Way to Go Contra Costa, and Futures Explored is proposed to be doing the travel training program. And I think I'm actually going to ask Josh to talk a little bit more about that on our next item on the agenda.
Okay. Is there anything, Lori? I saw your hand, kind of.
I would just say that, yes, the City of Richmond, El Cerrito, and San Pablo, if I may speak for those 2 cities, really worked hard and diligently on this application, along with the help of WICTAC. And we spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, even to the point of contacting Drennan with MTC on a regular basis to make sure that we had dotted all of our I's and crossed all our T's, if I can say that. And we thought we had a very effective application that was really ready to have some forward thinking, some forward moving, even to the point of thinking of a route to Martinez, the Veterans Hospital out there, from specific locations in Richmond, El Cerrito, and San Pablo. Unfortunately, we didn't get the amount of funding that we asked for. In fact, it was quite reduced. We were asking for $800K, not knowing that we would get that, but at least we thought we'd get a large portion of it. It ended up with $105K. I think that for the future of these type of projects, I think that we need to probably have a closer kind of communication, a closer network with some of these funding agencies, MTC, because I think that maybe they didn't quite understand what our project was, although it was really simple to me. Not because and the other cities authored it, but because we thought we were addressing exactly what was in that application. Well, it was surprising when we found out that MTC awarded that to just one, outside entity that is not even located in any of our communities. And we had nonprofit organizations that had actually some, at least one that I can think of, maybe there were more, correct me if I'm wrong, that actually had submitted projects for kind of wanting to do the work within the 3 communities, but they didn't get that opportunity. But they reached out, MTC reached out and awarded that to a organization that wasn't even in any of our communities. So I'm still trying to understand that piece of it, and then we talked about the budget in there so that each of the cities could kind of work with that budget and work with a nonprofit organization to, in collaborating with that. But all the funding went straight to that organization. So I'm still a little bit baffled. I'm not going to complain here in this forum, but I just felt that there should be some other way in which we could really be more proactive in working with these outside agencies and organizations and the agencies so that we really understand what their role is, and so that we can pretty much ensure that we're understanding and communicating. So I am not too pleased with this funding source at all, because it seems like Richmond, El Cerrito, and San Pablo are always trying to struggle with the seniors out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we bring together a really good, effective project, we're always shortchanged, if I can say it, since it's about funding. So I just think that that's something that I want to put out there and just see how we can better work with these sources.
Okay, any other comments? One of the things that I don't know too much about is the new criteria. What gives you a lot of points in the new criteria? Is it the same as before, somewhat?
I think for the capital side of it, it was pretty much the same as before, but this round also included what was previously the New Freedom Funds. They rolled that other funding source under the current federal legislation into the 5310 program, and that was what most people use to fund mobility management type programs. So I think that criteria that MTC used was a little bit looser, I would say, than the very qualitative format that the state used when it came to quantitative, deciding how people got vehicles. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I think it was that. And there was a lot of strange percentages.
But I know that in the old 5310 system, that the thing that gave you all the points was replacing highly used vehicles.
Right.
Period. It was just whatever those numbers were. So,
Yeah.
and even if you're getting new vehicles, it was still based on how effective the use of the vehicle was, based on their criteria, what effective meant, which had to do with how many people you could take around in a period of time. I don't know if that's what's doing
It was
here,
still that
or-
way for the vehicles, yes.
So then,
From what I understand. And
but
I
what
think
do you do when you're actually, who would have been
So
providing the rides in
so
the
a-
system?
So a few of these applications had that capital component for vehicles. I think the Contra Costa ARC ones did. I believe the Golden Rain Foundation's one did, Leslie. Is that true? Yes, that's correct. So there was some of that traditional scoring going on when it came to those vehicle procurements.
And those were mixed in with the others?
They were all mixed in together.
Okay, so that meant, just like before, if you weren't doing that particular thing, you're not going to zoom to the top.
Yeah, I mean, they were all mixed in together, but there was categories like, is this going to be a capital procurement? And if it was, then it had certain criteria to it. And if it was going to be an operating component under the New Freedom, it had a different set of coordination
But no matter
criteria
which
to it.
type it was, it got translated into points that then competed with each other?
I believe that's so.
Okay.
They competed against, capital projects competed against other capital projects.
okay.
And because the funding was somewhat still separated, 55% of the funds needed to go to the traditional scoring criteria for capital projects. But it used to be also that, it gets really complicated. It used to be that even under the traditional methodology, mobility management projects were allowed. It's just Caltrans didn't allow it because Caltrans didn't know how to handle it or score it. So everything was done as part of the capital system when Caltrans did it. This year when MTC took it over, it was a little bit different. So they tried to fund 55% at capital, but if there wasn't enough applications within each urbanized area to do that, then they funded some with the mobility management portion. That's the way I understood how they did it. So there was this,
Okay, any other comments, Steve? Was your hand going up? Oh, no. Okay. Sorry. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the agency update to be determined.
Yeah, well, so what we talked about at the November meeting was having, a couple years ago, we went kind of around the room and had all the transit operators give a 15-minute presentation at different meetings about their operations and what they did. So in November, we talked about having some outside agencies come in and do that. And a lot of it came from these 5310 applications and reading through them and kind of seeing what some of these agencies did. So I brought that up and everybody seemed really excited about that. And one of the first, I used the Contra Costa ARC as an example, and people were interested in them, but they were busy today, so they couldn't come in. So I've scheduled them for next week. In discussing next meeting, sorry, NyQuil. So in discussing Josh coming on board, I asked him after I found out that ARC couldn't make it, hey, can you talk a little bit about Futures Explored? So he has agreed to talk a little bit about Futures Explored and the Disability Council and kind of what's going on there. Absolutely.
For some reason, I think your mic isn't on. So
Yeah,
you've got to have a red light here.
I was just asking if
press
it would
the
be
button.
possible to use the projector because
Right,
I brought
but
a
yeah,
small
there now you go.
presentation.
Okay. Now, the other thing about the mics is that only three can be on at the same
I
time.
think it's four or five.
Four. And it blows everybody out.
They just all cut off.
Yeah. So,
Or no, the fifth person can't turn theirs on, is how it works.
oh, okay.
Until other people.
So those of us who won't be using our mic, but do you count, Peter?
I think so. Do I count? Do these up here count? Denise knows more about how this works than I do. Oh, sorry, I put her on the spot. Should we test it?
I believe it's 4, but
Wanna come up
let's
here,
see, we've got 1, 2, 3.
Or just give
One
me
more
the-
mic. Somebody want to turn another mic on? Okay, that's
So
4.
you need to have yours on.
Oh, so the 5th mic will not turn on. So now we.
So it means that people should.
And then you should also all know that the chair has the power to just shut everybody's mics off.
Oh, okay.
Not with this mic. Oh,
Your
that's that
anti-rat
mic.
browser?
That's why there were so many mics here.
I was going to say, we have the same system, and the chair mic does have the ability to.
Yeah, here it is right here. I'll switch mics.
Certain cities can use that at their council meetings.
Yes. Okay, I don't quite know how to use it. I don't remember, but
What do you want to do?
okay.
Just connect.
So now I can shut everybody off. Is that button, Steve?
I think so.
Because this is the same as everyone else.
Yeah, it's the one that has a little, I can't see from here, but.
Can we just practice here? Yes, that is it. I'm sorry I turned you off, but I was just practicing. Okay.
There we go. Well, hi, everybody. So
Now I need to move.
I actually wear 2 different hats. I work part-time for Futures Explored, which is part of the Way to Go Contra Costa team effort. for mobility management, and then I also am the executive assistant to the Developmental Disabilities Council, which has traditionally had a spot on PCC for about 20 plus years, I think was the, we looked into it with Penny. So the council has asked that I occupy the DDC spot for the time being, and Pete asked me to come in today and present on both the council and what we're going to try to do with futures in mobility management. So while they're fetching me a jump drive to do the DD Council presentation, I thought I'd start with a little bit about what we're going to try to do as Futures Explored. And so through the Way to Go Contra Costa and the 5310, we decided that we were going to apply for a mobility management project that we call Mobility Matters. And with that, it's part of it is curriculum development in pairing different ability levels, both cognitive and physical, to make a curriculum that just really makes sense. Use multimedia, use pictures, landmarking, the different things that we've been using internally in our system for years and getting people up and traveling independent throughout the community. So I believe in the grant we've applied for it's in 2 stages. The first is development of the curriculum, and then the second is actually testing the curriculum. And some key components in how we're going to try to make this happen is we'd like actual service recipients, folks that ride currently, to be the staff to the project that actually go out and do the training. So we'll develop a pool of riders and different abilitied folks that will be matched to the need of the community. So from my perspective, I've done mobility training for years for Futures, and I've always said that, I can train, but really a person who uses a wheelchair or a person who experiences the same difficulties on a day-to-day basis that the person that I'm training is going to experience, they should have first crack at this, because it just changes the perspective so much. And it'll let the staff to the project go back and do more of the extra stuff, like we talked about, doing pictures and multimedia. It'd be great to try even PDAs, things like that, just new forms of technology. So I think that about covers it. Is that pretty much there? All right, yeah. So any questions on the Mobility Matters portion? Did that?
Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Oh, actually, could you come to the, yeah, then everyone can hear you.
And to turn this on? It is on. Thank you. I had the pleasure of meeting Josh actually over at MTC when they had a bidders conference of sorts, if you will, to learn about 5310. And we were so delighted to get hooked up with him because in mobility management, the work we're going to be doing at Senior Helpline is going to be about not only seniors now, but about also the disabled community, younger disabled community, and which Josh represents. And with his project, we specifically helped him, he did a pretty darn good job of writing his own grant, but it came into our pool with the idea that the Mobility Management Center staff would assist and help with curriculum, with research, et cetera, without a cost to his grant. So he doesn't have to pay out any money for us to do that. So we will be working in concert with him and sharing best practice as he develops them, defines them, and we help him find them. So I just wanted to tell you that's one of the partnerships that we're going to be doing.
Thank you, Elaine. It would be called PCC, DDC. The one at the bottom. The very bottom. And then the PowerPoint, or the next one is the one right above it. So when we get to it. Okay, so now... I think that's brilliant. Yeah. So switching hats, I also serve another council similar in structure to how PCC is arranged, and we have a crazy constituency and group of stakeholders, and we're actually called the Contra Costa Developmental Disabilities Council. And so I wanted to share a little bit, or was asked to share a little bit about that, but I always want to because it's a great thing. So, hello, I'm Josh, and and I have a dongle now. That's the official term for these, by the way. They're called dongles. Being a techie. So, I actually wanted to share a little bit about the Developmental Disabilities Council, and we've been a proud part of our community's web of support for just a little bit now. We were started in 1964, so the council is celebrating its 51st year in doing what we do. It's pretty amazing. And really, it's our 48th year as a council under the support of the County Department of Health. So we're actually a functional part of the Contra Costa County Health Department. And let me see here. Okay. So our community's DD councils have been a model throughout the state in providing mission-oriented support to our targeted community, and that's people with developmental disabilities. And unfortunately, currently it's believed that only Contra Costa and Alameda counties are the only two DD councils that are still operated off of state dollars. Most of them have kind of become shadow councils or faded as the years have gone by. So I feel always proud to be part of a heritage that's just a little bit, longer lasting than I've been around by a lot. So our mission, of course, is to promote and coordinate the improvement and growth of services and supports to individuals with developmental disabilities and their families, and to advocate for their needs. So that's a pretty wide and broad mission. And with that, many, if I would say the majority of folks in our community do use public and paratransit in some form, and have traditionally since the council start. So I think that's kind of how we found a seat on this council some time ago. So specifically, our primary purpose is to identify unmet needs and gaps in existing services for people and their families, and to provide coordinating and planning mechanism through which the county can and the community will take all possible measures to guarantee the orderly development, effective operation, and necessary continuity of services. So the council today, I'm actually new in the role. John Rodriguez was the old exec to the council, and he'd been there for some time, and he just retired, and I was lucky enough to take his place. And with that, because I'm a total data geek and into computers and stuff, one of the things that I strongly believe in is that if you're going to support a group of people, you actually have to know who that group of people is. And so this is really small. We're going to tab over. I thought these numbers actually might help with this count, with the PCC. So can we tab over to the Excel file? So the last time we actually as a community ran the numbers of people with developmental disabilities in Contra Costa County, we were looking at around the high 4,000s to the low 5,000s, and our documentation was reflective of that. I was able to actually run a couple different reports with the help of the Regional Center of the East Bay to really look at what our population looks like today. And so if you go into the Excel, down at the very corner at the bottom there, see where it says 100%? Down there. And you just click the plus. So I know we have a lot of cities that are represented here. So as we go around, I mean, if we look at San Pablo, let me tab over on my screen here. Yeah, I think, is that plenty big for everybody looking at the smaller screen? So basically, we were able to capture who belongs to our community in under 36 months and over 36 months as of this year. And extra credit, I know it may or may not be showing it, but anybody care to venture a guess on what the largest, what city holds the largest population of adults with developmental disabilities in Contra Costa County? So I hear Concord back there. I heard Antioch over here. You say
second
Richmond?
one down. I can't read what it is.
Oh, you're trying to cheat.
Well, I just see that it has more width.
Yeah, there's...
I couldn't tell what the second one down was. But I think I'm right.
So,
Aren't I?
can I borrow
Oops.
the? Okay, so I think I can. Let me see.
Oh.
Okay, so here we go. So, Antioch
Antioch.
is the winner. So you get extra. If I brought a gold star, I'd give it to you. And I thought it would be helpful to share this with the PCC when we talk about expansion of services and where need is for people who use paratransit, transit, and different types of mobility needs. So Antioch currently has 1,060 folks in that city alone who are clients of the regional center. So Lanterman entitled people with developmental disabilities. And I think Richmond currently has 697. But in grand totals, the thing that really did surprise us in running the numbers is our community has jumped over 29% since the last time we ran the numbers. And what our community is made up of is changing. We have the autism, the increased prevalence of autism within our community. Folks are living longer in healthier environments, and that leads to having to adjust what we're doing to stay relevant on every level. And that's why I think, mobility management and being linked in with transportation is so important. So,
Can I just make a comment before you move on?
yeah, absolutely.
The only problem with the statement you just made about funding is that represents only a subset of disabilities.
Absolutely.
And so people who acquired disabilities after a certain age who have a different type of disability, but who are transit, what's the word? Dependent. Are not included in your numbers.
Correct. And so my numbers are specifically to people that are stakeholders of the developmental disability community.
Right, yeah. But in terms of our programs,
correct,
we cover all categories that are within our definition, which is yours is a subset of ours.
A subset of the larger community.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. So basically, right now in the council itself, we're taking action to become more relevant to our stakeholder group, which is still planning, development of new services, training for professionals, advocacy, liaisons to state, federal boards and agencies. And with that, I always think of relevancy as you're trying to do the same thing, but you have to change how you're doing it. So we've just updated our website. We're trying to go down some social media pathways, things like that, just general fun stuff. So, and that's the council.
What do you further divide the age groups beyond 36 months younger, 36 months older?
We could probably try to get that data.
I mean, I'm just wondering from transportation's perspective, would it be 18 and over type thing, or I'm looking at transportation providers out there?
Well, they come out of high school generally at 22 or 23, and that's when they move from the
Provided
education,
transportation. Education
and
provided
they-
transportation.
and it's crazy because they think, oh, well, now we're going to ride a white van. I have my independence. No, just because the van color is different, they really need to be trained. And I was going to ask you, Josh, because our TAC is going to be going after school districts for curriculum for the teachers, because I've wheelchair marked tethered little kindergartner chairs. They're darling.
Yeah.
But that teacher, she waits for 2 buses, takes an assistant, and takes those kids to the pool every day for their exercise. And and it's been 15 years. So they're almost out of school. Those kids will be fixed route riders for as long as they can because they've been trained. And so our focus is going to be, like you said, developing the curriculum that's appropriate and then packaging it so a teacher can pull it off the shelf and use it to keep educating them as they go through the public school systems.
And that's essential. And what Mallory was talking about is for folks who, through a variety of circumstances, stay in the school system, past 18, they shift into what's called bridge schools or transition schools. And they're eligible for those services until 22. And part of that, if some of the better school districts out there really do very strong mobility training. And that's it's a needed component to adult life. But yeah, but even on that, I was going to say, traditionally our community, when we talk about the changing face of the developmental disabilities community, not necessarily the acquired disabilities community, is that folks more and more, when we talk about autism, have the scholastic, the academic aptitudes to be able to get out of school at 18 with a diploma, and not necessarily have the soft social skills to be successful in things like riding public transportation.
I guess another question I would have you heard of, came out of Access, actually. It's the Functional Assessment of Cognitive Transit Skills. It's a huge training. We have, on East Bay Paratransit, we have eligibility, analysts that do our determinations for East Bay Paratransit service. And that's one area that we were lacking, and so we had to rely on Regional Center, and they, of course, were shedding their folks onto us, whether they were appropriate for our public transit system or not. And so we are training our folks, and we'll have a principal instructor come out to test our folks to make sure that but you should look into it, or I can give you the link to it.
I would love that.
Because it's well documented, and we are going to start moving down that path. Because, physical disability, and for us to assess that is one thing, but the cognitive abilities of folks to use transit is something different, and it changes all the time with the technology as it's improving.
Yeah, and even on an individual basis, when we talk about soft social skills, you can have conditional, we call it in our system conditional eligibility. But even so, depending on the circumstances, a person can be 100% capable of handling the environmental situation, or prone to remodel. We in our system, we now call it remodeling, not property destruction, when a person gets very upset. So, any other questions? Or
I couldn't quite understand what you just said.
So,
I think it maybe isn't that I'm not hearing the words.
No, absolutely.
Or something.
Here, let me see. Is this a little bit better?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
What the problem was.
So what we were talking about is in mobility management and mobility training for some time, we've advocated for a thing called conditional eligibility. An example of this would be, there was a young lady who I used to support who uses a power wheelchair, and she's 100% of the time capable of traveling on her own, but there are things that happen outside of the scope of her control that would limit her ability to do that. And in her in particular, her power wheelchair was not capable of operating in the rain. So when it would rain, her chair would sporadically shut down, and thankfully Tri-Delta Transit would step in and send a paratransit bus to help out. Or we have other folks that
There's
have...
something wrong with your...
I think so. It's not me.
No, I don't think it's you. Maybe we could give him the other mic. Maybe that'll do better.
Is that
Or
a little bit better?
It kind of goes up and down, volume-wise.
All right, I'm going to turn this off so we don't get squelch.
Yeah.
A little bit better? Okay.
We'll see.
And there's, I mean, I could give countless stories or invite folks to come in and give personal testimony that just sometimes a person's ability is determined by things beyond their control. I have a gentleman that I used to support that because of his visual impairment, he could travel completely independently and pass the test that would say you need to travel on your own, you're not eligible for paratransit during the day. But if the test was given at night, he would absolutely fail. So that's conditional eligibility on that scale.
Do you have something, Peter?
No.
Oh, okay.
All right. Thank you, guys.
That's much better, that mic, by the way. At least right now. Are people having trouble hearing me?
No, you're
No?
fine. No, that's
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could hear it going up and down in volume as you were talking. So I apologize on behalf of your having to put up with that. Doesn't usually do that. The other issue with what you said on the rain thing is how do you know when it's going to rain? Ahead of time. Yeah. You can't make your reservation a week ahead of time or whatever if you don't know when it's going to, And besides, even if they say it's going to rain, that may be not what happens. Or, vice versa. So it's a problem. I have a situation where one chair can go out in the rain, the other one can't. So all depends. So you're done with your let's find out if there are any questions. Any questions? Well, thank you very much are there any questions from the audience? Thank you very much. It was a very interesting report, and I learned a lot. And I'm sorry that we had the volume problem. I'm glad I mentioned I couldn't hear because I have a feeling I wasn't the only one in the room. And then I could hear it going up and down. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the CCTA Conflict of Interest Code revision.
Yes, so I think it was November that we brought this to you. It might have been even the September meeting that CCTA, which you are an advisory council to, our legal counsel went ultra-conservative and decided that any members of the advisory councils to the authority should be providing a Form 700 Club. Form 700, which is part of the Political Fair Practices, is that right, Denise? Commission. Fair Political Practices Commission. And so we have been collecting those from everybody. We've had a couple of webinars from our council to help people fill those out. And I think from the PCC perspective, we're in pretty good shape. We've got a few folks that we still need to either get those Form 700s from or kind of make a determination on whether they're actually still on the council or not. So I think the best way to do it is Irene and I will be contacting those of you that still need to turn those in directly and working with you to get those turned in. And again, it's upon the member to do that, and it just helps protect you in the long run if there's any. And what it is in the case of funding, for instance, when you're advising the authority on who should receive or how much funds should be received by your agency in Measure J funds, that if there's ever a situation where somebody said that might be a conflict of interest because maybe you're benefiting from your recommendation to help your agency or receive those funds. I'm not saying that very well, I'll apologize. But again, it's a conflict of interest situation because you are advising the authority on a particular group should receive Measure J funds, whether it be maybe one of the operators. And I think it's less of an issue with the PCC, but still as an advisory council, our attorneys have said you guys should fill these out. So I just wanted to remind everybody of that. Janet, you look like you have a question.
Yeah, I'm
sure it's
puzzled.
because I didn't explain things well.
Yeah, I think it's not because you might be getting some of the money because, meaning your agency, because, for example, an elected body has to do it. So, for example, CCTA board members have to do it. Or a better example is a city has to do it, the members of the city council, and they cover the whole city in a lot of cases.
Right, and I think how our attorney described it is if we are making recommendations to the authority,
right,
that the authority is taking action on consent or without much discussion, I think that's the issue. Then they're just taking it based on the recommendation versus really discussing the issue a lot. I think that's more the cover. That's the part that's questionable.
Heard.
Yes.
I don't know about the consent part, but I think it's because decision that's being made at a higher level is being made based on the advice. And I think that, yeah, I think that's more the reason, at least that I've been told in other places.
Yeah. So we'll follow up with the 5 or 6 folks here this week. That it's 5 or 6, right? Is the list, and we will talk to them directly.
And soon to be 7, maybe, huh? Okay, so we'll move on the agenda to the Bay Area Partnership Accessibility Committee. Peter?
Do you want me? I was the past chair last year of BayPAC. Okay. Currently, this is a group that meets once a month, and it's comprised of accessible services staff from multiple organizations, those that participate in the Regional Transit Discount Card Program, those that participate in our regional eligibility database for paratransit. Currently, we've been working on, for the last 2 meetings, FTA issued a circular, number 2. They are trying to spell out best practices and make recommendations. All of the transit agencies take great offense to this because they're using the regulatory process in order to do so. We believe that their intentions, however well meant, their best practices and recommendations use very prescriptive. They use language like should. Transit agencies must, or transit agencies should. Here is the data you should be collecting. And so they've really, in an attempt to clarify why you need to clarify it in California, transit agencies' compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is now going to celebrate its 25th birthday, is beyond us. But that's what they're intending to do, but they've just really muddied the water. So APTA, which is a national organization that represents transit operators, they've had several conference calls with their general counsel on behalf of all the nationwide transit operators. As I said, this group, we have drafted our own comments. MTC has drafted comments, and we're all pretty much in step with telling these people that this is just an inappropriate avenue to pursue. And if they want to put out a best practices manual that's separate, or there were white books that were developed on vehicle specifications back in the day, anything like that, but they're really intending, it's going to set up expectations for the community that the transit operators are really, they're going to put us in a pretty liable position if they publish it this way. So that's what we're working on. The chair next year will be Tina DeBost from Samtrans, and Kudra from LAFTA will be the vice chair. And again, these folks handle not only the regional transit discount card, but also the regional eligibility database. So that's what we're doing.
Okay, any comments?
And you said you wanted to get rid of it. I think I read in the minutes, which is fine. Of the report, that's fine.
Are you still participating in it?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's good to hear that stuff. If you're here, we'll leave it on there.
And you're usually here, I believe.
Yeah, so I haven't been, recently I've been sending Kim, but Kim does not.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the Senior Mobility Action Council report.
Yes, we had a meeting this morning. And actually, there are 2 or 3 people in the audience 4 people in the audience who were at the meeting also. Finishing up the Contra Costa County Transportation Network, getting into final draft kind of thing with what's provided all around the county by various agencies and cities. We do plan possibly this fall to have a big event on transportation, and we'll let you know more about that as we get the date finalized and the place and speakers and stuff. those were the two biggest things that we talked about today. We also had a Mobility Management Center update from Elaine Welch and Ty Boyle. And I don't know if anybody from that's in the audience and would like to speak on any of those items. I guess not. We'll let you know as the plans go further.
Well, thank you. Anybody up on the board like to speak? Nope. Okay, we're moving along. The next item on the agenda is funding opportunities. Do we ever have any? Should we take that one off? Okay. We'll just leave it there then. That's okay with everybody. Future agenda items for future agendas, or the next agenda.
I would like to make a suggestion.
Okay.
I've been observing in myself as I'm getting a little bit more frail, although it's not reached a serious point. I have some mild neuropathy. On public transit agencies, how quickly BART, for example, closes its doors when it comes to a stop. And I know they have headways that they have to take. Just that maybe at some future meeting we could talk about the issue of, I'm going to call it pre-disability. In other words, people that are starting to get a little bit frail, but they wouldn't have to use a wheelchair or a walker yet. So that, because that would be an obvious sign to an operator, for example, you don't have to slam the door in somebody's,
No.
train. But
They do.
If you just, and I know you'd appreciate that. That if we could talk about that issue just maybe down the road at some point, to bring it to the attention of some of these agencies, that, when somebody has to get up from a transit stop to walk over to get on the bus, for example, that, the bus isn't going to just give them a couple of seconds to get on the bus. That type of thing.
You're talking about the bus now?
Buses, just in general, just everywhere. It's not any one agency. BART's my main concern, because BART seems to be getting really bad. It comes to sort of jerky stops. So you can't really get up from your seat until the thing stops. It stops sometimes, and then when you get up, it moves forward again.
Yeah, that one I believe though is automatically programmed, which is more of a problem. But on buses, I think what you're saying is totally relevant.
Yeah, just to bring this up so that we can sort of float it.
So, how would we do that?
We get somebody like Tom Reyes that works for a bus operator, and talk to somebody at BART about what their policies and procedures are regarding that.
Yeah, sort of. I could tell what you were saying.
We can add
You
that
did
and just
fade.
get policies and procedures. I don't know what BART does. I mean, it's a good, if somebody's inside the vehicle, I know they have cameras. Are they looking at cameras, seeing if people are getting up? I honestly don't know. So we can talk to BART, and then we can have the bus operators comment on generally what their policies are in that,
Okay.
in that
My
situation.
understanding on BART is it's automatic. It's not, the train is not run by the operator.
Well, yeah.
The
Have to find out. I'll find out.
the automatic train control system
We'll have
runs
somebody
it.
come in and
But you could have somebody come and explain that
right.
from BART.
Yep.
Now,
to
we
brief
wouldn't
you.
want to.
Yeah, well, just because what I'm bringing up about that, for example, would be that the operators are supposed to make an announcement. This is not actually our stop. We're going to move forward a little bit more. They need to make that more
They
consistent.
usually do.
Right, but sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
And that's usually when I get up and
So, should we have all of the operators the same day, or do maybe a couple
We
each
can just
time,
have,
or
I
what?
think we can just have a few of them discuss at the same time. I
At
don't
the
think
same
it'll
time?
be a
Okay.
real time consuming.
Okay, next time, if you can get them
We'll try it
together.
for next time, if not the meeting after that.
Or if we couldn't get all of them next time, maybe we could do the ones we could get, and then the following time try for whoever's left. Okay. You want to get all of the operators?
We can try, but I don't know that it's that necessary that we get all of them. We can find out what their policies are.
Well,
and have that in the staff report.
Isn't the point for us to tell them to be careful? Michael?
Yeah,
So
I'm
if
just
some of
hoping
them,
that we could make
if
a
only
comment.
part of them are here, then the part who aren't here won't hear that.
Well, the important ones are here now, so.
I
To be
don't-
honest, I don't know specifically
I don't
what
see
ours are. I'm gonna have
Bart
to
here,
look
do
into
you?
it. No. Bart is the only one not.
and
But
then-
I think having a discussion, whatever we
Is
have
Westcat here?
could be productive because this is
Westcat's not here.
something we can.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't, since this isn't agendized, we probably shouldn't have too much of a discussion
Yes, it
about
is. It's
but-
called future agenda items.
Well, but I mean about the specific item.
But no, we're just talking about what we're going to put on this agenda versus the other agenda, I believe. Right? That's what I think I'm talking about. So there's not everybody. I mean, I think that not everyone is here. So anyway, they need to be invited, right, for this agenda item?
Well, they shouldn't have to be invited. They're all members of this committee and should be here, but I will make sure that they're aware of the discussion.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other future agenda items? Okay.
I'm trying to think of the calendar. I will be bringing the schedule for the Measure J allocations in March as well.
Okay.
Just the schedule and, how it's going to work. And generally, March, April, May is when we make the allocations. So in March, I'll be coming with the process.
Okay. And just for those who are new, excuse me, could you explain what, will you have the numbers, dollar amounts?
The end of March is when I get the numbers, so I may not have I may or may not have the actual dollar amounts at that point, but I'll have the schedule and the process as far as what information we want from all the operators to make their claims. And so for those of you that don't know, Measure J is our half-cent sales tax, and there's in the expenditure plan, there's specific percentages that go to the paratransit and bus operators. So this group actually looks at the paratransit, all the operators that receive funding from the paratransit, and they make a recommendation to the authority for that. So March will be the process. We'll send out the applications, and then we have a subcommittee that looks at those, and then in May, you make your recommendation to the authority. They take that up at their meeting in June. So we'll also have to appoint the subcommittee in March for that.
Okay.
To watch the application.
Okay, so you put that on the agenda? Okay. Anything else? Okay. So moving on the agenda, is there any news to share? Thank you all for coming. What? We are. In our audience, I don't think you folks have done anything other than introduce yourselves. Thank you for coming. Go ahead. Go ahead, Steve.
This is more fixed route than paratransit. However, just for awareness, we are having 2 public hearings this week. And the reason is Tri-Delta Transit is doing a major redesign of its entire system. And one is it's Wednesday evening, Bay Point, at the Ambrose Center. Now it's on our website, and then there's another on Thursday evening. One is at the Ambrose Center in Bay Point, and one is in Brentwood. But we appreciate public input because when eBART opens, our system will probably look different than it does now. We're paying consultants to help us come up with what that should look like.
Thank you. And just, if I could, Peter, back up to the future agenda items where Michael brought up the item that requires fixed route operators. I think we could say how it connects to paratransit is that it causes more people to use paratransit than otherwise would because of what he was talking about. So it's related. Rita?
Not necessarily, this is not paratransit, but it's transit that AC Transit is going to announce. Well, actually, they did at the WICTEC meeting that starting in March, the 72-hour is going to run on San Pablo Avenue on weekends, which is really big news to those of us who use public transit.
Now, that one I can't justify as a paratransit item.
No, I said you can't. But it's public transit.
Right. Okay. So now we are adjourned, and our next meeting is on March 16th at 2. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you,